was looking for das und hat es nicht gefunden. Und hat dann mich danach gefragt. Sir, wo ist der Recording? Ich habe gesagt, ich weiß nicht, ich habe es vergessen.
Vielleicht brauche ich später.
Ja. Also 10 Minuten haben wir verpasst, aber that's okay. Aber 10,
Yeah,
10
it's okay,
12
yeah.
minutes. That's all, that should be all right. Okay, so, jetzt. Da sagt der jener.
Sir, here, Entschuldigung, darauf sagte sein Freund. Ja, warum der Freund?
You can use either, it's up to you.
Ja, okay.
Either, it's up to you. You can use either. Darauf sagte sein Freund, darauf reagierte der Freund, darauf fragte der Freund, meinte der Freund, anything. It's up to you. Because all these verbs, also alle diese Verben, sie werden mit Konjunktiv 1 benutzt. I think we did that in that thing I showed you the other day, meinen, behaupten. You recall that thing, that handout that I showed you on the net? Behaupten, meinen, erklären. All these verbs, these are impersonal verbs which show the opinion of somebody. Behaupten, to claim, meinen, to opine, fragen, to ask. All these as a freedom. In fact, the word fragen is coming here, and it's also given with the verb here towards the end. You have the freedom as a reporter to add new words, new sentences, or new phrases because you're reporting something. And being true to the original, without changing the meaning of the original, you're free to change the sentence format in such a way that there is a flow in the sentence. Darum geht es eigentlich. That's why the text here, diese 37 Sätze, die sind kein Problem. Aber wie gibt man eine Rede wieder, wenn es in Form eines Textes vor uns steht? What do you do then, and how do we do that? And that is the important thing, because we are learning how to report something, Rede, Wiedergabe. And once we learn the basic part here, Konjunktiv 1, we'll go on to how do you construct the sentence, changing the verbs into nouns and conjunctions into prepositions and all that tamasha. But that's comp. Okay. Yeah, weiter. So, Abhi, magst du denn weiter oder will jemand das übernehmen?
Okay, sir.
I don't know. Ja, du kannst es weitermachen. Also ich bin nicht dagegen.
Okay, sir. Da sagte jener. Da sagte jener, er solle.
Dieser solle.
Okay, ja. Dieser solle zuhören.
Ja.
Das Brot, das behalte, Diese.
Nein, jener.
Okay.
Yeah, jener.
Remember, see, this is a problem when we have two people with the same gender.
Okay.
So here the former means this jemand who has bought the bread. A kauft das sechs Brote, remember? So
yes.
This guy, there are no names here. Had there been names here? But there are no names. Since there are no names, we have to use this jener und dieser. Und jener sagte zu dieser, to the latter. Or you say, da sagte jener seinem Freund. Remember I told you can add? You can make modifications?
Yeah.
So können wir dann sagen, jener sagte dieser?
Jener sagte diesem.
Diesem, okay.
But that diesem will be repeated here in the sentence. So why do you want to use it in the beginning?
Yes.
So, da sagte jener, dieser solle zuhören, das Brot, das jener behalte,
esse jener.
Esse er. Now it's okay. Because you got the context jener.
Yeah.
So now you can use er. Yeah?
So er ist voll diese oder jener?
Jener. The one who bought the bread.
Okay, sir.
The one who has bought the bread. And das ist hier. 6 bread. And his friend asked him, ये 6
Okay,
bread
okay,
के
sir.
साथ क्या
First standard.
करें?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Next, das Brot, das jene Wegwerfe, gebe er seiner Schwiegermutter.
Yeah.
So gebe jener seiner
Nein, gebe
Schwiegermutter.
er. Gebe er. Jener has come here, na?
Okay, sir.
Gebe
It's
er,
come here and it's a continuation. So that's okay. Yeah.
und wem gibst du die Brote zurück?
Ha.
Und wem?
Der Freund wollte wissen, why don't you change it? Der Freund wollte wissen oder der Freund fragte nochmal,
Und wem gebe jener
ja, wann
die
gebe
Brote
jener die Brote zurück?
zurück? Fragte der Freund.
Ja,
Zwei.
ये खत्म हो गया यहाँ पे ये पहला वाला बोल रहा है 2 Brote gebe ich meine Eltern.
Ja, sir.
Und der Freund fragte nochmal.
Hm?
Und dann was?
एक minute. There is, why are you confused? Don't be confused. Also, let's take very simple. In such cases, was man eigentlich machen soll, is man bildet number of rows, maybe you add a few more. Let's say 6. So, dieser, jener.
Jener.
Write down the sentences. Who said what? And if you look at the last sentence, also der letzte Satz hier, und wem gibst du die Brote zurück? Und jener antwortet, because dieser is their Freund, the latter, who came later in the context. Who came first in the context? This person, who has been buying 6 loaves of bread.
So, jemand kaufte jeden Tag 6 Brote. Das und fragte der Freund, das sind gleiche Person.
Nein. Wieso? Wieso ist er dann die gleiche Person? Sein Freund fragte ihn. Wen?
Ja, sir.
Jemand und ihn. एक आदमी था जो 6 ब्रेड खरीदता था, तो एक दिन उसके दोस्त ने उससे पूछा, किससे पूछा? उससे जो 6 ब्रेड खरीदता था रोज। उसने उससे ये पूछा कि वो हर रोज 6 ब्रेड के साथ क्या करता है, जिस पे उसने जवाब दिया, now इसने now you're lost again, so you have to go to जो ब्रेड खरीदता था, उसने कहा एक ब्रेड वो रखता है, एक फेंकता है, 2 वापस करता है और 2 जो है उधार देता है.
So, jemand ist dieser.
Jener.
Jener, okay.
Former.
Okay,
the one who has come first in the conversation, the one who has been mentioned first in the text.
Okay, sir.
Jener and jeder, they both are different words, right?
Yeah. Jener und dieser. And both refer to 2 different people.
Das verstehe. Jener und jeder. Zum Beispiel jeden Tag, jede Person.
Jeder is every. Every. Jeder. Jeder is har koi. Jeder. Jeder
Jener
soll. Ja.
und jener ist eine Person, worüber hat man früher gesprochen.
Also jener ist die Person oder das Subjekt, das schon einmal ganz am Anfang des Textes oder im Gespräch erwähnt worden ist. It's a subject who has been mentioned or that has been mentioned schon am Anfang. The former and the latter. For example, Prime Minister Modi met the Prime Minister of Japan, and the former had actually invited him to come to India. Who is the former? Modi. Because I mentioned that name first. Yeah, Yena.
Und dieser would be?
The latter person, the one who was being mentioned later. Latter, L-A-T-T-E-R. Don't confuse it with later.
So dieser is the other PM.
Deezer is the one who has been mentioned at the end, who has been most recently mentioned in the conversation in the context. Trump and Biden were both presidents, or Trump and Biden are great leaders in their own right. The former, however, made a mess of things in America, and the latter is trying to correct it. See the order that I mentioned. Former and latter. I mentioned Trump first and then Biden. So because both are masculine, both of them refer to, will use the same pronoun he and his, it becomes difficult to make out or to whom this pronoun is actually referring. So either I keep repeating the nouns all the time, which makes the conversation so stilted, so awkward, because nouns are not used repeatedly. It's very, very bad style and very bad command over the language. So when you use former and latter, it helps improve the quality of the text in terms of style, in terms of expression, in terms of usage. Also, dann nehme ich also die Hilfe von diese zwei Wörter, dieser und jener. They're both politicians. Good politicians, maybe, in their own right. But the former made a mess of things towards the end of his presidency. And the latter is trying to improve the things, which the former had made a mess of. So when you say former, you have to refer back to the order in which the names were taken. The problem comes when you have three people in the conversation. Then you have to take names. The former and latter will not work, because they refer to only one of each. Unless I take them as and, join them with and, in which case it will become one unit.
Okay.
Yeah, let's take this in this. I'll give you four names. Trump and his wife didn't like animals very much, whereas Biden and his wife are very fond of animals. The former allowed no dogs, but the latter have 3 dogs of their own.
So you categorize one couple as Lisa and the other as Yena, yeah.
But if you look at it individually, there are 4 people. So I club them together, because if I say these are Yener, I can't apply this for 4 people separately, individually. Then you're lost. Which one is it? Which one of these 4 is former? Which one of these is? Because they'll all come in a line in the subject. And so best is to categorize them, make it simple. Remember, Kommunikation bedeutet, so klar wie möglich die Bedeutung unserer Gesprächspartner zu geben, weiterzugeben. How do you do it to your Gesprächspartner? Also der Gesprächspartner sollte verstehen, was eigentlich gesagt wird. So for that, you have to be very clear as to who you're referring to. And if you use a table, it sometimes helps you categorize it. So when you say zwei Brote gebe ich, this jener is saying. And now in our sentence here, it becomes clear because he buys 6 breads and he says, ein Brot behalte ich, ein Brot werfe ich weg, 2 Brote gebe ich zurück und 2 verleihe ich. Und der sagt, also ich verstehe nicht. Was bedeutet das? Geben zurück, werfen, verleihen. So, then he explains. Was ich behalte, das Brot, das ich behalte, esse ich. Das Brot, das ich wegwerfe, das gebe ich meiner Schwiegermutter. My mother-in-law. Und wem gibst du die Brote zurück? Dann sagt der Freund, 2 Brote gebe ich meinen Eltern. I'm returning. Und die beiden Brote, die ich verleihe, gebe ich meinen beiden Söhnen. There's a little bit of philosophy here. Lebensphilosophie. These are old stories from almost all cultures have these stories. So what you have, you keep to yourself because you have borrowed bread from your parents and you are giving it back to them. Gebe ich meine Eltern zurück. The one that you are lending is to your sons and you expect them to look after you in your old life. So you give it to your sons, you lend it to them. You don't give it to them. So it's all very symbolic here. As parents, what you do for your children are expected to give that back, return that favor, return that obligation, return that duty, or whatever you want to call it. They are supposed to look after their parents in their old age. Right, so it's a little bit of philosophy here. There's also a similar story in one of the, I think, Buddhist Jatak Katha. So you have to now differentiate this person and that other person. On der Freund wollte wissen, once you say Freund wollte wissen, you don't need Fragte. Der Freund wollte wissen, wem gebe jener die Brote zurück? Darauf reagierte jener, darauf antwortete jener, habe ich 2 Brote.
2 Brote gebe jener seine Eltern.
You said jener here. Yeah. Huh.
Okay. Seine Eltern
Ja.
und die beiden Brote, die verleihe, gebe seinen beiden Söhnen.
Yeah, that's it, simple. Once you get the trick, it's very, very easy.
Yes, sir, first time.
Any questions? Anil? Achal?
Verstanden, aber nur eine Frage.
Ja?
Wenn gibst du die Brote zurück? Fragte der Freund.
Audio ist nicht klar. Ich kann dich nicht gut hören.
Sir, wem gibst du die Brote zurück? Fragte der Freund.
Ja?
Sir, इसमें ये आना था wem gibst jener die Brote zurück? Fragte der Freund.
Why gibst? It's K1 gebe jener, ne? Third person singular.
Okay.
Jener. Third person singular.
Okay. Wem gebe jener die Brote zurück? Fragte der Freund. Ist das richtig, Sir?
Das ist richtig.
Klar, Sir, verstanden.
Okay. Any other doubts here? Anil?
Nein, Sir. Ich habe.
Anil is okay?
Hallo? Ja.
Ja?
Nein, sir.
Remember, conjunctive eins is more a written form rather than spoken. Do not panic.
Reported.
Remember, it's reported speech. Reported speech is normally given in writing. Normally. Das ist keine Regel, aber normalerweise ist das eine geschriebene Sprache. But ab und zu mal, you can use the K1 verbs when you speak, but not on a regular basis. What will happen when I repeat the speech, if I'm going to tell you, will be exactly what is here. I would not use K1 when I'm speaking. For a very simple reason, als native language user oder native speaker, als Muttersprachler, habe ich selber Probleme mit den Nerven. Und warum soll ich mich jetzt konfus machen? Jemand kauft jeden Tag 6 Brote und eines Tages fragt ihn sein Freund, was machst du jeden Tag mit 6 Broten? Und der antwortete, ein Brot behalte ich, ein Brot werfe ich weg, 2 Brote gebe ich zurück. Und 2 Brote verleihe ich. Oh, der Freund war total confused und er fragte weiter. Und eigentlich sagte er, das habe ich nicht verstanden, sprich deutlicher. Und dieser Mann, der denn das Brot gekauft hat, er sagt, ja so. What I do is I'll change the tone for the inverted commas. This is exactly what we do when we report some things. We change the tone and adopt the tone of the person who was asked the question, the interpretation we give ourselves. Whereas in writing, I can't write down, what are you doing here? I can't write that tone down. Correct? So what do I do in this in writing? I'll give a small addition on my behalf and say, he asked angrily, what are you doing here? So that word angrily automatically is reference to what are you doing here? Was machst du here? So when I'm reading it, I know this question has been asked in anger. Got it? So this is where the Rede Wiedergabe spielt eine große Rolle beim Schreiben. Und hier nicht nur nicht nur diese Wiedergabe, einfache Wiedergabe, sondern auch die Interpretation. Oh, how beautiful! How will I express this now in the written form? I can't give you the tone. Oh, what a beautiful color. I've said it, you've understood it, but I'm supposed to write it and show it to you. What a beautiful color. When I write it, you may read it, you will read it flat. You do not know the tone behind it. You'll read, what a beautiful color. Now, all that tone that I've used has now gone waste. So how will you report that? He asked, totally surprised, astonished, in extreme appreciation, in wonder. It depends now on you to use words which will define the tone that I have used. So he asked in wonder, full of wonder he asked. What a beautiful color. So when you say in wonder he asked, when you read it, believe me, our minds read that with wonder. It will not be a flat statement. He asked in wonder what a beautiful color that is, and he replied back in that same way. You don't read like this. Our mind reads it differently. But when I'm narrating it, I have to take on the role of that person who is enacting that, who is speaking that sentence. And there, happily, I'll go ahead with the direct speech. Because it makes things easier for you to understand. Right? Let's take another classic example. Then we go to the next text. This is also very interesting. Again, with new words here, so it will be real fun to do the K1. Let's take a statement. There's let's say, a film story that I'm trying to narrate to you. Und da gibt es einen betrunkenen Mann in dem Film. There's a drunkard in the film. And this person who's drunk, maybe the hero, heroine, villain, or whoever, in a drunken mood, they're saying something. Hello, well, you know, when I say that in that manner, you know somebody's drunk. I have not taken alcohol. Ich trinke keinen Alkohol. And with the expression, facial expression also. You see it, you understood it. But how will I give it in writing? You will write there, ich habe keinen Alkohol getrunken. But does it convey the same meaning that is conveyed through that visual thing? No.
No, sir.
So what will you do in writing? With eyes half closed, staggering, not walking properly, unsteady on his feet, he said, he has not taken alcohol. Er habe keinen Alkohol getrunken. So once you start describing this also, remember, Rede Wiedergabe allows you this freedom. Unsteadily on his feet, eyes half closed, he said, er habe keinen Alkohol getrunken. Then I get the complete picture when I read this. So it's more when of a reading thing, of a written exercise, which you are trying to convey to the other person who is going to read. So K1 bei der gesprochenen Sprache ist nicht sehr, sehr häufig gebraucht. Small things I can use. Mein Chef sagte, ich solle das euch mitteilen. Devkaran sagte mir, ich solle euch das alle mitteilen. Es gibt ein Seminar am Sonntag um 3 Uhr. Or even that, es gibt. Remember I said es gibt. Es gäbe ein Seminar am Sonntag. Total K1. So when I speak to you, I prefer to go back to indicative rather than use the K1. It's easier. Ich solle euch mitteilen, es gäbe ein Seminar, es gäbe ist tolle. How do I know you understood that? In the first place, I'm not sure whether I'm using it correctly. So there are practical aspects to be considered when we learn any item of grammar. And normally such items, K2 is more frequently used than K1 in spoken, which is the reason we learned K2 first and K1 later. And remember, K1 also uses K2 as an emergency structure. Are we clear? Yes? So no need to panic. If you understood the context, the usage, the concept, Schluss mit dem Thema. The topic is over. Would you like to try this? The Han und der Fuchs?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to try a bigger text, a longer text?
Second year in the sense, like second
Sir, longer text.
Let's take this one then. Die ungleichen Angestellten. Bevor wir die Übung machen, wir müssen einmal den Text durchlesen, damit wir dann die Bedeutung verstehen. Und dann beginnen wir mit der Arbeit. So, have you all read the text? Have all of you read the text here? oder ist der Text unbekannt?
Unbekannt, sir.
Unbekannt, okay. Anybody here who's read the text? Avi, Achal, Aditi, Anil?
Nein, sir, ich habe nicht gelesen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
9, sir.
नहीं आपको डेट का डालना पड़ेगा.
Okay, so let's read the text very quickly and let's make sure that we understand what is being said. The moment we are clear as to what is going on, then it is easier, that much easier, to convert it to K1. Und übrigens, es gibt auch Tipps hier, also welche Verben sollte man umformen. So let's start. Wer beginnt?
Erstmal brauchen wir nur vorzulesen.
Ja, bitte, 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 bitte.
Okay, dann. Zwei junge Leute, die gleich alt waren, wurden gleichzeitig in einem Geschäft mit gleichem Gehalt angestellt. Der eine der beiden, Arnold, kam jedoch rasch vorwärts. Der andere, Bruno, blieb in seiner bescheidenen Stellung. Bruno bescheidenen Stellung. Bruno war deshalb unzufrieden, aber nicht mit sich selbst, sondern mit dem nach seiner Ansicht ungerechten Geschäftsinhaber, bei dem er sich eines Tages beklagte. Dieser hörte ihm ruhig zu und nahm sich vor, ihm den Unterschied klarzumachen. Herr Brunner, sagte er, gehen Sie mal auf den Markt hinüber und sehen Sie, was heute geliefert wurde. Brunner kam zurück und meldete, dass bis jetzt nur ein Bauer mit seinem Wagen Kartoffeln da seien. Wie viel? Fragte der Kaufmann. Brunner setzte noch einmal seinen Hut auf, ging fort und berichtete bald darauf, dass auf dem Weg 40 Säcke liegen. Was kosten die Kartoffeln? Bruno ging zum dritten Mal fort und nannte den Preis.
Danke, Aditi. Who will take this up towards the end, to the end now? Somebody else, please.
Darf ich?
Ja, bitte, Surbi.
No. Nun sagte der Geschäftsinhaber zu Bruno, setzen Sie sich mal auf diesen Stuhl, sprechen Sie kein Wort und hören Sie nur zu. Er ließ Arnold kommen, der auch sehen sollte, was auf dem Markt geliefert worden war. Bald kam er zurück und berichtete, der Bauer, der bis jetzt allein auf dem Markt sei. Berichtete, der Bauer, der
Hallo?
bis...
Audio.
Hallo?
Ja, ja. Bald kam er zurück und berichtete,
der Bauer, der bis jetzt allein auf dem Markt sei, haben 40 Säcke Kartoffeln. Er verlangen dafür so und so viel.
Ja.
Die Kartoffeln seien einwandfrei. Das mitgebrachte Stück beweisen es. Der Bauer bekommen in einer Stunde auch mehrere Kisten Tomaten, die seiner Meinung nach sehr billig seien. Da die Tomaten gestern sehr rasch verkauft worden seien und nur noch wenig davon in Lager liegen. Da man an der so nicht so günstig kaufen können. So raten er, dass der Kaufmann zugreifen. Er haben deshalb nicht nur eine der Tomaten, sondern auch gleich den Bauern mitgebracht. Der draußen warten, der Geschäftsinhaber wandte sich zu Bruno und meinte, er wisse wohl jetzt, warum Arnold ein höheres Gehalt bekommen.
Good. Well read. So reading is not an issue with any of you, I'm sure. And I'm confident too. So have you understood this story?
Nicht so klar. Also, die
Eigentlich
Ungleichen heißt Unjustice or not so
Nein.
same.
Not same.
Not same. Und Angestellten?
Employee.
Employees. Okay.
So what does it mean actually? Ungleichen und Angestellte.
Also es gab ja zwei Angestellte und sie sind ja ganz anders zueinander.
Ja. Also das bedeutet, die sind nicht gleich. Also die waren ein bisschen anders vom Verhalten und Denkweise auch.
Ja.
Yeah, so they were unequal, they were unequal, uneven, unlike each other. So Bruno und Arnold. Und Arnold, der kam rasch vorwärts, rasch, schnell.
Fast.
Rasch ist ein Synonym für schnell, also hier. So he made rapid progress, quick progress upwards. Der andere Bruno blieb in seiner bescheidenen Stellung. Bescheiden, modest, frugal, simple. So he stayed where he was in his very modest position. 500 rupees a month. So he stayed in that very modest place.
Bescheiden heißt modest.
Yeah, modest.
Okay.
Modest, not in that meaning that you are hinting at. That modest is different. Modest here means in a very simple manner. Very einfach, very, how do you put it? Very traditional. जहाँ पर है वहीं पर है. He was happy with what he had. That is that bescheiden here. Don't confuse it with modesty.
Okay.
Actually, that is also bescheiden, but in a way it becomes a noun. Bescheidenheit. Zurückhaltung.
So was ist modest?
Something very simple, a very modest thing. He earns a modest salary. He doesn't earn a very handsome, very high salary or not a very low salary. ठीक था, कमाई ठीक ही थी. That is the word modest here. So er blieb in seiner bescheidenen Stellung. Und natürlich, Bruno war unzufrieden. Er glaubte oder er war die Meinung, der Geschäftsinhaber war ungerecht. The shop owner was being unjust, unfair. Also er beklagte sich bei ihm, bei dem Geschäftsinhaber, Relativsatz. So he complained to this Geschäftsinhaber about the other person getting more money than him and being favored. So dieser, also der Geschäftsinhaber, hörte ihm ruhig zu und nahm sich vornehmen and he decided to make the difference clear to him. So he told Mr. Bruno, gehen Sie mal auf den Markt hinüber und sehen Sie, was heute geliefert wurde. So just go to the market and find out what's there in the market. So he came back and said, ein Bauer mit seinem Wagen Kartoffel steht da. Wie viel Kartoffel? So Bruno geht nochmal auf den Markt und dann kommt zurück und sagt, also bitte 40 Säcke, 40 bags, 40 sacks, Bora, bag of potatoes. Aha, was kosten die Kartoffel? Once again Bruno went out, then came back with the price. Found out and came back with the price. Dann sagte der Inhaber zu Bruno, bitte setz dich hier, also setzen Sie sich mal auf diesen Stuhl. Don't say a word, just listen now. So he called Arnold. And he was also told, go to the market and check what is there. bald kam er zurück und berichtete. Now this whole thing is a report given by Arnold, which is where the maximum number of verbs will be in K1. And which is why you have these brackets here. And he reported, der Bauer ist allein auf dem Markt, hat 40 Säcke und verlangt das und das Amount. He demands this and this amount, such and such amount. Die Kartoffeln sind einwandfrei, flawless. Einwandfrei bedeutet kein Fehler. They're all perfect potatoes. Das mitgebrachte Stück Beweises. So he's brought a sample of one potato. He said, here, this is the piece for you to see. It's absolutely flawless. Excellent potato. And then he also told the owner, der Bauer bekommt in einer Stunde mehrere Kisten Tomaten, Kiste, Crate, Kocha, more crates of tomatoes, which he feels are very cheap. As the previous day or yesterday, the tomatoes was sold very rapidly. They were all sold out. And only very few of them are there in the stock, in the shop. And you cannot buy them at a so good or so reasonable a price anywhere else, anderswo. So he advised Arnold is advising the Kaufman, take up this offer. Zugreifen, get hold of this offer. Don't miss this opportunity. So he has not only brought one tomato as a sample, but also brought the farmer along with him who is waiting outside. All in one trip. He went out, found out all this and came back and told him. So now the shop owner turned to Bruno and said, you see, now you know why Arnold gets a higher salary than you do. So there are people who know how to be smart and how to deal with things at one go. There are others who have to be told to do things immer wieder, einen nach dem anderen. So those who are independent and think independently, work independently, are rewarded. Those who do not remain where they are in the same position. So almost everything is fine till here. Da gibt's nichts zu ändern. Only the direct speech part, that has to be changed to K1. Okay, and since this is imperative Satz here, and dieser is Geschäftsinhaber, der Geschäftsinhaber, you can take the word, der Geschäftsinhaber, oder dieser hörte, um ihm den Unterschied klar zu machen, und, use it und sagte Bruno, dieser soll, now, since you said, sagte Bruno becomes dieser. Und sagte Bruno, dieser solle mal auf den Markt hinübergehen und sehen, was an dem Tag geliefert worden sei. Passiv Konjunktiv 1. Remember, this is Präteritum. So anything that is in past tense, and there's only one form in past tense, either habe oder sei plus Partizip 2, the same rule works for passive. You have to replace that sein or the haben in the passive to sei. In the active to sei.
Bitte wiederholen Sie die zweite Satz, dieser was heute geliefert wurde.
Was heute geliefert worden sei.
Mit heute kann man sagen, an dem gleichen Tag?
An dem gleichen Tag. I was looking at only one aspect, so I didn't want to touch the other one. Do you remember? If you remember this, might as well do the same thing again. Two columns. Oh, here. If I put this here, here, and here, and here, remember the rules of passive here?
Yeah.
These are all sentences that are active.
Yes, sir.
So when I start here, ein Brief or der Brief, that's egal.
Ein Brief wurde von mir geschrieben.
I don't want that von mir, so let's leave it out. That is not compulsory. Ist
geschrieben worden.
okay, and the last one.
Ein Brief war geschrieben worden.
Super. This much you remember, right? If you remember this much, then we have one something very, very simple. Now, for these three things here, there is only one form that I can use in K1 or K2. In K1, I'll say ein Brief sei
Geschrieben.
That's all. I can't use anything else here. Remember, there is no time as fixed point in K1 or K2. This is passive. Remember, this is passive. If you want an active, I can give you the active also. Here in the active Satz, you will have to merge these again. And you'll have to say, there is nothing else that you can put here. K1 will be, ich habe einen Brief geschrieben, and K2 will be, ich hätte einen Brief geschrieben. So since there will be one form possible, habe oder hätte, K1 und K2, same rule applies here. So in K1 it's sei, yeah, K2 will be wäre. Remember, haben will not come on the K2 form. So it's a very simple rule. This is something that we had done earlier. And we are just transferring that part here. Also, was heute geliefert worden sei. Bruno, yeah, yeah.
Sir, was that? Ich habe hätte oder ich habe oder hätte einen Brief geschrieben. Was war das?
This is your K1, K2 active. This is K1 here. I'm not taking K2. I'll remove this if it's confusing you. Okay. Instant.
So das ist nicht indikativ.
Das ist indikativ.
Was ist das? Das ist indikativ.
Yeah. As an indicative. Ich schrieb, habe geschrieben, hatte geschrieben. That is indicative. Remember, there is only one form in K1 for the Vergangenheit. In indicative, there are three possibilities. Perfekt, Präteritum und Plusquamperfekt. Indicative is reality. We can define time, which is why we have three time zones, so to speak. In K1 and K2, these time zones do not play any role. They are not important in an irrealer Satz, in a reported speech, excepting giving that site adverb. That's all. So you do not have to define them as Präteritum, Plusquamperfekt, or the perfect. They take only one form to tell you it is in the past. And that is this formula. Habe plus Partizip 2 oder sei plus Partizip 2 plus worden in the passive. It's very simple. We just have to remember this. It's very logical also. You don't have to worry about likhi thi, likhi ja chuki thi, or likhi gayi hai. You don't have to worry about it. Just take one form for all of them. And that is this form here. Ich habe geschrieben. Or if you want it in K2, hätte geschrieben.
Sir, ich habe K1 und K2 passiv verstanden. Aber könnten Sie bitte auf Hindi erklären, was das bedeutet, ein Brief? Nein.
Geht nicht. Geht nicht. We don't have these three forms in Hindi. We don't have these three clear-cut forms like this in Hindi. We'll have to use it with either likhi ja chuki hai, lik chuki hai, ya likhi gayi hai, likhi gayi thi. That's all.
Okay, sir.
So this clear-cut with the auxiliary verbs is not there. Remember, the verb goes to the end. And we have options in Hindi and alternatives in Hindi. Their brief is, yeah, because in Hindi there's the passive forms as clear-cut as in German are different in Hindi.
Okay, sir.
There will be a difference in the languages, the structure of languages. We just have to understand the basic concept. That's enough. Don't look for equivalence. Das geht nicht immer.
Okay, sir. Verstanden. Danke, sir.
Ja? Okay. So, bald kam, Bruno kam zurück und meldete, reported. Since he came back and reported, this sentence will also be in K1. Das bis jetzt nur ein Bauer mit seinem Wagen Kartoffel da sei. Ein Bauer. Der Kaufmann wollte wissen, wie viele Kartoffeln da seien. Bruno setzt noch einmal seinen Hut auf, ging fort und berichtete, bald berichten, to report, bald darauf, dass auf dem Wagen 40 Säcke lägen.
Entschuldigung, sir.
Ja,
Warum legen und seien?
reported, melden. Melden is to report. Berichten is to report. So both these sentences will have to be in K1. He reported. He said, he informed. When you're using verbs like this, then there will be a K1 in the written form.
Okay, aber in zweite Sätze, Subject, Subjekt ist ein Bauer, dann sei oder seien?
Sei.
Okay, ja, sir, sei. Okay, sir.
Sei, das habe ich gesagt, ne? Ein Bauer sei mit seinem Wagen Kartoffeln da. Der Kaufmann wollte wissen, wie viel die Kartoffel kosten oder kosteten. Because kosten, K1 and indicative look the same. So take the K2, kosteten. In the context, although kosteten preteritum is the same as indicative, you can let it stand. If not, change to K2. Kosteten. But kosteten, K2 and preteritum indicative are the same. Then you will have to take the würden form which Abhi had used in one of the earlier sentences. Wie viel würden die Kartoffeln kosten? How much would they cost? So instead of making it that confusing, we know it is a reported speech. In the written form, it's visible. So stick to the kosteten and over. That flow tells you it is K1 and not indicative in the middle, in the flow. Der Kaufmann wollte wissen, wie viel kosteten die Kartoffeln. Also Bruno ging nochmal fort und bald darauf berichtete er, dass auf dem Wagen 40 Säcke liegen, lag, gelegen. Now you have to take this in past tense. Lag. From lag you form your K2. Läge is K2 mit Umlaut. Plural is lägen. Whereas that, unfortunately, that verb legen and legen, there's not too much of a difference when you speak. So you switch over to the hitte or the Vyoda form and K2. But since it is a written form here, you can keep this as it is because I can see the clear-cut difference. Why did I take K2? Very simple. What is the K1 of liegen? That is also liegen, correct? Conjunctive eins of liegen is also the same as the indicative liegen.
Yes, sir.
So again, I think I might be confused, or I think you might be confused if I write it like this. So I switch over to liegen.
Sir, wir können würden verwenden.
Das können wir auch machen. But würden would be even more confusing for you to use. Remember, the rule is don't always replace it. I told you that rule. Don't go by what you see in the videos. If you are sure that it will be, the flow will be there, if I use liegen, you can use liegen. Don't worry. Remember the idea of using this alternative Ersatzformen is to make things clearer. If there is no clarity, just go back to the original. This whole text is reported from here. So here also the verb liegen, although it looks like indicative, means it is conjunctive in this context. Don't worry. Okay? So, was kosten die Kartoffel? Again, you want to know The cost, again, put that in indirect speech, a fractor den Kost. You change it here, a fractor nach dem Kost der Kartoffel. Report it. Don't put this in inverted commas. Don't try to make a wollte wissen, was die Kartoffel kosten. Again, you'll get into problems. Kosten, should I say kosten, kostete, würde kosten? Why go into that? A wollte or a fractor nach dem Kost, nach dem Preis der Kartoffel. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. This is Rede Wiedergabe. On next one, you are changing the verb into a noun. That kosten has been replaced with price. Isn't it the same? Even though I have replaced the verb kosten with the noun price. And this is the essence of what we are supposed to do in this lesson with this Rede Wiedergabe nominal verbal. So this exercise that I'm doing here is part of that grammar part or the grammatical item in the book. Change it to the nominal style. Er fragte nach dem Preis der Kartoffel. Also der Geschäftsinhaber fragte nach dem Preis der Kartoffel. You don't like to use the word Bruno, Bruno all the time, then you use the word Angestellte. Also, da ging der Angestellte noch einmal oder zum dritten Mal fort und nannte den Preis. And you still have your reported speech. I suggest you try this at home, and can you send it to me to my mail ID, please? I'm collecting this thing, and I'll sit down and start going through all the written work you've sent me, and then return it back to you with comments.
Okay, sir.
Mail it to me, please. On the phone, I can't read because I have to keep scrolling constantly, and it's very difficult for me to make correction. I don't know how to do the correction part here, to write comments and all that. Remember one thing, let me underline that. Ich betone darauf nochmals. What you are trying to communicate to me through writing or through report, conjunctive eins, you have to assume that my understanding of conjunctive eins is as good as yours. So if you feel you are confused, you clarify your confusion by changing the structure. If you feel you are confident of the structure, no, I will not misunderstand it. Therefore, my listener will not misunderstand it. Go ahead. It depends on the user. Yeah, so you have to assume that the other person is as good as I am. And naturally, one always have this Unterschätzung. One always tends to lower one's own status as compared to the others. It's a human tendency. It's only those who think they are better than the others who have this, I can understand, so he will also understand. अरे उसके तो बुद्धू है, definitely समझेगा. You shouldn't go with that attitude. मेरे को समझ आता, मैं बुद्धू हूँ, मुझे समझ आ गया. Which means दूसरा तो definitely समझेगा because that person is more clever than I am. Go with that attitude, not with the attitude that other person is an idiot, he will not understand. Go with that attitude, and that will help you with your language usage. And this last one is a total report of what Arnold said. Berichtete, der Bauer and so on. So you have more verbs in brackets. Remember, the report is between Bauer and Arnold. So der Bauer, der so and so, so of the market sein, habe 40 Säcke Kartoffel, Er ist still with Bauer. Er verlange dafür so und so viel, die Kartoffel seien einwandfrei, das mitgebrachte Stück bewiese das oder beweise es. Der Bauer bekomme in einer Stunde auch mehrere Kisten Tomaten, die seiner Meinung nach sehr billig seien. Da die Tomaten gestern sehr rasch verkauft worden seien und nur wenig davon im Legen, da man anderswo so kaufen könne, man, Subjekt, köfte, so rate jener, who is advising? Not the Bauer, but Arnold. And the Bauer was the second mention, and it's all about Bauer. Again, Bauer was mentioned. So confusion is between Bauer und jener, the Arnold, so jener, das der Kaufmann zugreifen. Und deshalb habe jener, again, this air and this air match. So it's a nice exercise to get you to look at the verbs, the conjugation and the usage. Und zweitens, nehmt euch Zeit. Also das brauche ich nicht heute auf morgen. Das könnt ihr dann entweder übermorgen oder der Tag danach zukommen lassen. Take a day, work on it. But I want you to be totally confident of what you are sending me. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Ja, okay. Dann wollte ich eigentlich heute, that unfortunately I think we'll have to put off to another day. I wanted to start with this text here, because this is again the reported part. Müssen wir immer erreichbar sein, das ist auch dann ein sehr, sehr interessanter Text. And die Aufgaben hier, how do we report this? Redewiedergabe in wissenschaftlichen Texten, Zeitungen und Nachrichten. So there is something given here. Professor Miriam Meckel and Dr. Kerstin Kohls, both of them are researchers. One is a professor, Professor Oren here. So we use different expressions to re-narrate what has been said by them. For example, these prepositional expressions. Laut, nach und zufolge. Laut, according to, genitive. Nach, dativ. Zufolge, dativ. You can also use the same thing with wie. Wie Kerstin Kuhls berichtet, erklärt, wie im Text geschrieben worden ist oder wie geschrieben wird, wurde, wie es im Text heißt, or wie der Text uns sagt, or something on those lines. With wie. The same Redewiedergabe. How do you report? As it says in the text, जैसे यहाँ लिखा हुआ है, जैसे कहा गया है, जैसे उन्होंने कहा. Or you take K1 and so on. I've gone one step ahead. This is K1 in Vergangenheit with sei oder habe plus Partizip. Aktiv, I gave you the passive also. And this is how it's supposed to work with this text. Inverted commas are missing because their statement has been written down directly here. Nein, wir müssen auch abschalten dürfen. Niemand ist verpflichtet, auf die umfassenden Ansprüche der modernen Kommunikationskultur einzugehen. Natürlich wollen wir per Handy vernetzt sein, aber eben dabei nicht den Überblick verlieren und ständig in der Pflicht zur Kommunikation stehen. Ein erster Schritt kann es sein, Zeiten für die eigene Erreichbarkeit zu definieren. This is what she had said, that her entire spoken part is given here without the inverted comma. Which means the whole thing can be put into kinds. Professor Miriam Meckel ist anderer Meinung. Once you say sie ist anderer Meinung, you remove the nine. Or ihrer Meinung nach, wir müssen. Also wir also, that is, sie meinte, sie sollten auch abschalten dürfen. Remember this beautiful usage, müssen and dürfen, two modal verbs in the same sentence. Told you, say eins, this is where we learn the finer parts of language. How do we polish our language and sound German? Müssen is have to and dürfen is allowed to. Wir müssen auch abschalten dürfen. We must be allowed to switch off. We have to be allowed to switch off now and then. Have to, allowed to. You have to allow me to come at late tomorrow. So how do I say have to? Müssen. Allowed, dürfen. So two modal verbs in one sentence. So the texts here, they are superb, really superb. I've gone through these texts. But they're really superb in the sense of usage, structure, language. Remember, there is no more grammar to be done here, excepting this beautification part. So we'll be looking at these aspects. The grammar aspects are easy now. As long as our earlier grammar that we have learned is fest, solid, solid. Wenn wir das ganz solid gelernt haben, dann werden wir hier überhaupt keine Probleme treffen.
Entschuldigung, Herr.
Ja. Ja, Frage.
सर
excuse me. Yeah.
सर जिस लाइन में हम दो मोडाल वर्ब्स यूज करते हैं उस स्ट्रक्चर को हम क्या कहते हैं?
Modal verb. Also ein Satz mit einem Modalverb. This is the Hauptverb, the conjugative verb, das finite verb. And this is the other verb that conveys the meaning. Wir müssen auch Kaffee trinken, Pause machen. The other verb gives you the main meaning and this gives you the modality. We have to take a break. We have to close now. I have to go home now. Have, go, have to go, must write. So one expresses modality, the other gives you the meaning. So dürfen gives you the meaning, müssen expresses the modality.
And the sentence where we use müssen und dürfen beide?
Yeah, you can use them happily, both of them. No issues there.
Zum Beispiel, sir.
It also works with können. Ich muss die Arbeit machen können. I have a double here. I have to be able to do the work. How will you express it otherwise?
Wir müssen Kaffee trinken dürfen.
Yep. Den Kaffee or einen Kaffee, whatever. Definitely, why not?
Einen Kaffee trinken dürfen.
Yes,
Trinken
we have to be
or
allowed.
dürfen.
We have to be allowed to drink coffee. That sentence is absolutely correct. Kein Problem.
Sir, könnten Sie dieses noch einmal wiederholen?
Welchen Satz? Also, was Ansel gesagt hat? Ja, okay, Ansel.
Ja.
Hallo. Wir müssen einen Kaffee trinken dürfen. Und wir müssen mindestens einen Kaffee trinken dürfen. Wir müssen mindestens eine Kaffeepause machen dürfen. We have to be allowed to take a coffee break.
सर इस सेंटेंस ये कौन सी ग्रामर है सर?
Modal verb.
बट सर ऐसा हमने सीखा नहीं है ना, अब तक हमने सीखा है
हाँ।
कि एक ही मॉडल वर्ब और उसके बाद दूसरा वर्ब
हाँ।
इंफिनिटिव पे।
क्योंकि बच्चों को सिर्फ लॉलीपॉप खिलाया जाता है, उसके बाद बड़ी बड़ी चीजें मिलती हैं।
तो इसको भी हम, इस चीज को भी हम मॉडल वर्ब ही कहेंगे।
नेचुरली है तो मॉडल वर्ब का स्ट्रक्चर ना, ये स्ट्रक्चर इज स्टिल विद मॉडल वर्ब।
सर आपके पास विभुंगन है इसकी?
इट इज अ युवंगन। अरे युवंगन क्या करोगे यार, सेंटेंस अपने आप बन जाएगा जब का जब। युवंग में कितने सोचोगे, कॉन्टेक्स्ट के ऊपर है।
बट सर ये बस आउसनामा है ना, क्योंकि जनरली हमने जितने भी अभी तक सेंटेंसेस
अरे कोई
ऑन एंड
आउसनामा
ऑफ
नहीं
कहीं
है,
पढ़े भी हैं।
इट्स नॉट एन आउसनामा एट दैट। अगर उस टाइम अगर शुरू किया होता ना, actually I should have started with structures like this when I taught my A1 class, my beginners class that time. मेरे क्लास में 400 स्टूडेंट थे, अगर ऐसे शुरू किया होता तो भाग जाते सब। As it is, I used to do that. I used to teach only in German. Admissions used to be open to everybody and within a certain date and time limit. So for admission, people more than 500 used to show up for admission. सारे admissions accept होते थे यूनिवर्सिटी में. Then I would start my class purely in German and refuse to speak a word of English or Hindi or Telugu or whatever. In fact, people would not even know मैं कहाँ से हूँ. They could not even guess, as it is long hair und so weiter und so weiter. Und die Kleider auf T-Shirt und Jeans. Und alles auf Deutsch erklären und nur auf Deutsch sprechen. So almost 1/3 used to leave within 2 days. Und slowly nach einer Woche oder 10 Tagen würde ich dann ein paar Wörter von Englisch oder von Telugu oder Hindi dann extra benutzen, um die Erklärung weiterzugeben. Und das war ganz also eine Überraschung für die Studenten, für die Schule, für die Lernenden. Ah, Sie sprechen auch Hindi, das ist gut. And those who left would try to come back. Sir, हमें नहीं मालूम था आपको हिंदी आती है. Now we want to rejoin. Sorry, not now, not allowed now. I can't take you back. Simple. Admission cancel. खत्म हो गई बात. जब शुरू में ही भरोसा नहीं रखा टीचर पे, तो why do you want to come back later? So don't worry about the Übungen. That's hang from context now. And Übung will only give you the same context, the same thing repetitively. So if you have a context and you want to say something, das ist genau wie man den Satz bildet. We have learned the basic meanings of the Modalverben. Remember, ich habe die Bedeutungen auch wiederholt.
Ja, sir.
Remember, once you know these are Grundbedeutungen and you know what you want to say, there is no rule which says nur ein Modalverb in einem Satz. Die Grundbedeutung ist wichtig. Was man eigentlich sagen möchte, kommt an der zweiten Stelle. Das ist das finite Verb. Und die eigentliche Bedeutung steht hier. Die Modalität steht hier an der zweiten Stelle und die Bedeutung steht hier. What is modality basically? Also Modalität bedeutet nichts als das Gefühl. If you want it in very simple terms, it's that feeling. I have to drink coffee. I have to drink water. What is that have to? It's that thing coming from within, a kind of a feeling that makes you say, pani pina hai. you can avoid that modality and also say, ich habe Durst. I'm thirsty. Das kann man auch sagen, ohne das Modalverb. Aber das bedeutet eigentlich das Gleiche. Ich muss Wasser trinken. It's your own compulsion coming from within. So the modality that you have to express for that is given through the modal verb müssen. Grundbedeutung, your own compulsion. You are getting dehydrated. You must drink water. Now this you repeat to somebody else. Ich soll viel Wasser trinken. I've been advised, I've been told, I've been asked to drink more water because I get dehydrated. So somebody else has advised you, and that advice that has been given to you, you are conveying to me now. So we use sollen. That is the role function of sollen. Auf diese Weise werden die Modalverben gebraucht. So it's very simple as long as we keep the basic thing in mind. That's why I insisted on the Grundbedeutung.